I remember reading this canto for the first time last semester when we took the class together, and that first line where the dark wood becomes an image where we find Dante, an image of a place where we find Dante, really stuck out to me, because the image of a dark wood is just something so scary. But for us, I remember thinking, I don't know how scary it is for us, because, well, I mean, how much time do we spend in the woods? Do you know what I mean? And so, I had to take a step back and say, well, you know, however many hundreds of years ago, the woods really did represent all that was, I guess, unknown, and where you'd really find the lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Right. But it does kind of beg the question, how did Dante get there? You know, normally you're in your house or wherever safety is, and not in this woods.
It's a little bit absurd to find yourself in a dark wood, to just wake up and all of a sudden be somewhere utterly strange and terrifying and full of monsters. You know, how do you get into the middle of something like that without noticing?
I think that in our lives, and maybe this is part of what Dante is addressing in this first canto with the idea of the dark wood, is really the way things creep up on us, the way habits, the way those situations that are difficult or end up becoming problematic, trying, just seem to come out of left field.
I mean, I think we're very used to operating on autopilot, and I think we've got a lot of kind of streamlined ways that we kind of plug ourselves in and just go. You know, anyone who's looked for a job or made a Facebook profile has had to kind of say, like, this is who I am in a few words. And I think we get very used to exchanging those things, you know, exchanging that very simple identity and being happy with that, being very comfortable with that, and just kind of going along. And then all of a sudden you realize that maybe that's not you at all, and maybe those things aren't important to you, but now you've got yourself in this middle of this place.
Almost 2 years ago, I got rid of my Facebook, and you know that you can deactivate your Facebook, but I deleted it. I had to go to the special page and read the special hidden directions on how to actually do that, and wait the 3-week period without like touching it or whatever it was. And it's permanently gone. And especially at the time, I remember that permanence scaring me to death. It's kind of like I killed myself, you know, I deleted myself. As much as we all have an identity as who we are, almost everyone has some sort of Facebook identity too. And mine, as it was, consisted of a lot of important things to me, a lot of friends from back home that I maintained contact with. It was my main way of maintaining communication with my parents. But at the same time, almost like Dante, there was a moment of clarity, because when I sat down at the computer and couldn't go to a different website first without clicking, right, automatically, I would find myself on the Facebook page and not remember getting there, or choosing to get there, or any sort of agency involved in that, and say, is this my choice now? Is this who I am? And I think that feeling is exactly what Dante touches on with the dark wood.
Yeah. What happens when you're alone in the room with just your actions, with just the things that you do, and just the things that you've done, not on paper, but you know, the things that you've actually done, you know, not the words for it, not the job title, not anything else, not the pictures. You really have to see what you have. You know, for Dante, I think he had writing, because he was sent out of his home. He didn't have the person that he loved. You know, like, what do you have? How do you deal all of a sudden when you're in the world and it's not your world? And I think if you're panicking, if you're freaking out, and you feel like who you are has been kind of shaken up, you kind of grab for things. And that's sort of why I thought it was so powerful when Dante sees Virgil, that it's this poet.
Yes, I think that knowing how the rest of the poem progresses and coming back and looking at this again, it's really powerful, the idea that in the dark woods, Dante seems to be saying some sort of friend, either a parental figure or a friendly figure, someone like us might just be around to help us out when we need it, which I think is very hopeful of him.
One of the things that I've had a lot of trouble personally reconciling is what Dante does with the virtuous pagans. Everyone else is in hell and kind of organized in hell because of their sins, because of something they did. And it feels like, they're put there because of something they didn't do.
Certainly Dante recognizes that fact because he finds them in the most outer levels, circles of hell. It can't be that bad of a sin, right? They're not frozen in the ice down in the middle with those really bad sinners. They are as almost sinless as a sinner could be.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that I kind of ask is, what's the grading rubric here? How is Dante, judging these people? Because they were good people in the context of their world, and in Dante's world, they're in hell.
It's a question of integrity in my mind, and what you just say, interpreted one way, very quickly devolves into a moral relativism, and that everything everything is okay because everyone has their own framework that they orient what is good by, and if you think that that's good, then I can accept that you can think that that's good, and that's good for you, and this is good for me, and happy family, but no one kind of giving a due to the fact that what one person thinks is good is going to maybe kill someone else, is maybe going to really harm someone else. And that, of course, has incredible implications. But as a writer, as a poet, and as a specifically Christian poet from a Christian background in a very Christian place, I think that it's imperative for Dante's integrity as a poet to create the space in the Inferno for the virtuous pagans without succumbing ultimately to a morally relativistic sort of stance that would, one, just, I think, underwrite his whole project, and two, without leaving them out.
Right. Well, and I think in a kind of a really interesting way, we're talking about, having a conversation, having a sort of not suspending judgment, because you have your own views, you have your own way of looking at things, but hearing someone out and acknowledging that they exist in their world with their particular views, I think is kind of what Dante does in the structure of the Inferno. I think the fact that he doesn't break up the virtuous pagans and distribute them throughout the different layers of hell according to their sins, he leaves them in their own space. He lets them have their conversations. He joins in the conversation with them. He has them they're in his world. They're in his worldview. They fit into the Inferno because that's where they are. And I think you're right that it's not this relativism, but it's also not.
Right. It's not harsh.
Right.
It can be friendly, because I am involved with multiple interreligious dialogue activities around campus and kind of study interreligious dialogue in the world today. The single overarching theme that you find, whether it's within people who have very different religious beliefs and need to work together, or people maybe in an interreligious marriage whose parents aren't going to be supportive, or whether it's at the political level even, that the single most helpful and almost essential thing to make this work, to make the conversation happen, to make the dialogue take place, is an element of friendship. And people will often talk about toleration or respect And I think that those are a part of it too. But I think that toleration and respect or acceptance kind of get balled up when it becomes some sort of friendship, and then it becomes sustainable. And I think without the element of friendship, I don't think it is as sustainable, because I think people's respect can have limits, and people's toleration will have limits. And what Dante respects about what the virtuous pagans believe does have its limits, and what he accepts about who they are does have its limits. Otherwise, they would not be in hell. They simply wouldn't. But the contrast to that is his relationship with Virgil, the fact that he relies on someone, he relies on him in the most powerful way possible to get him through the deepest, darkest reaches of hell, which is his own kind of identity and his own soul and his own dark woods. And in the end, that willingness to rely on someone, to trust someone as a friend, as a guide, as a paternal figure, all of that is one of the most productive things for Dante. So I guess maybe it's about putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Even though Virgil is one of the virtuous pagans, even though he's coming from limbo, even though he's encountered in the underworld, they still have a conversation. And I think that's an obvious point, but I think that's the most powerful one, is that it doesn't preclude that, and it doesn't preclude their real, genuine friendship.
Right.